for many years I was a confirmed fly fisherman. Absolutely loved it. In fact, I got to the stage when all my backcountry fishing, I was only carrying a fly rod, and that was probably for 20 odd years. But just recently, I've got into spinning, and boy am I having a ball. What I want to do is just give you some pointers so that you can enjoy the same fun that I have when I get out spinning. Today we're on the lower Hurunui River. This river is a fantastic river. It's said by Fish and Game that it has the second highest number of medium-sized or large-sized fish of any river in the country, and it's a really well-kept secret, so don't share it with anybody. But if you decide to come down here, I'm going to give you some tips to get hold of the fish that are around at this time of year. You see, we're actually doing this in September, and September has a lot of sea run fish coming up from the bottom, and we've got some of the spawners dropping down from the top. And with the way that the river is at the moment, where it's running around about 40 cumex at Mandamus, there's enough dark water in there to make our spinning rigs incredibly effective. I believe that you can probably fish the Hurunui from anywhere, say 45 cumex, down to probably ideally around 20 cumex. Once it gets really low and clear, sometimes you're better off then to go back to fly fishing. So let's look at the gear that we're using first and foremost. So I like to have, of course, braid. You see, braid was the thing that really brought me back to spin fishing. And the reason that I enjoy braid, of course, it's so thin. It means you can cast very small lures, big distances, and you can give them lots of action so that the fish are going to get all excited and grab them. Now, I like a rod that's going to be reasonably light in its action, but I like a long rod, and today I've actually got an 8-foot rod which I'm testing out. I'm going to give this a bit of a run around. We're looking at bringing this particular model in. Being an 8-foot rod with a very light action, I can take quite light lures and chuck them big distances. And when I hook a fish, so much more fun because I've got the bend in the rod and the fun of playing it as it comes in. But of course, it's what I put on the end that's a really important bit, because that's the bit that the fish sees and the bit that it wants to grab. And I have been doing a lot of work in the last 3 or 4 years particularly with different, what we would call hard baits. These are quite light lures that look like small fish. Today I've tied on one called a salmo, one of my personal favourites. Last year I was using this lure and had marvellous success, but you know, you need to use different colours and different styles of hard bait depending on the water that you're fishing. Today, because the river is quite big and it's moving quite fast, most of the fish will be on the edges and in the softer water. And I'm going to show you some of the techniques that I've used that have given me incredible fishing, and certainly you will enjoy it too. So I have here a range of different hard bait lures which are used in different situations. This one here is a Strike Pro, as are these two, different colours, and they have quite a vigorous action. They don't go down too deeply, but I know that the fish really love them. One of my personal favourites has been this one in here, which is called a salmo, and it's available in different sizes. There's a couple of different colours of them over there, but these last year were absolutely fantastic for me. This one here is a new one which we've been trialling out, and I know that in some of the other rivers that we've used, this one called a Berkeley Puppy Dog has been fantastic. In fact, one of my staff members last week caught himself a 10.5 pound trout down the mouth of the Selwyn on that particular model, and we've got another couple of new ones here which we're going to give a bit of a try as well. Now, when it comes to fishing with braid, it is important to get the right sort of reel. This reel here, which is a Fluger, has been designed specifically for braid, and the way that it lays its line is so precise that it makes it trouble-free when we get out there fishing with it. Often older reels will not work as well. The other thing that's really important is we come just through onto the first eye of the rod. You'll see that this is one of the new breed rods that has an upturned eye, and the reason that it's like that is so that it will accommodate braid. If braid is flying off the reel and coming around there, it just stops any looping that might occur. Remember, we want to have trouble-free fishing. Braid is fantastic stuff. I love it. And on the end of it, of course, I'm tying some fluorocarbon, which is clear, and that's the bit that comes from the line to the lure. Right, we're ready to go. When I start fishing in a river like this, the first place I like to work is upstream from myself. And often when the river's big like this, the fish are right on the edge, so I need to be able to cast in such a way as to wind down on the edge of the river just slightly faster than the current. I like to move the rod tip because that gives more activity to the lure and it makes it look alive. I like to then work my line in a grid pattern, so I might go slightly further out and a bit further out again and a bit further out again. I don't like doing haphazard casts. I like to make sure that I'm really covering the water well. And don't do too many casts. It's a bit like a door-to-door salesman. He wouldn't go and knock on the same door over and over again expecting to get someone to buy when they've already said no. So let's move on to the next pool, the next good stretch of water, and I find that I work quite quickly up a riverbank. When I select a place to fish, the thing that I'm looking for is some still water. And if you look up here on the left, you can see that the edge coming from the big rock up there, right over there you can see some spilling water coming over some obstacle rocks. Brown trout love living in there. So what I want to do is make sure that my lure goes right through that bit of water, because trout will often be found right on the edge. So I like to go as close as I can to the edge first and then move my way out. The last thing I want to do though is to be in too fast a water. The kind of lure I have doesn't work in really fast water. So I want to make sure that I stay in this more still water where more fish tend to hang out. A place where many people spend time fishing, which is particularly pointless, is in the very fast water. So on the right hand side over here you can see there's some fast water coming around our rock. A waste of time in most situations. Very few fish live there. Spend your time in the slow water on the edge, you'll get much better results. Now when it comes to selecting the water that you fish, it's important to know the water that you walk past as much as knowing the water you're going to walk to. Because we can spend so much time absolutely wasting our day with water that is pointless. Now remember, 80% of the fish are in 20% of the water. So you're going to be walking 80% of the time and only fishing past good water 20% of the time. Now if you look up here on our left hand side, you can see that as we go through here, the water is quite boisterous. But then right up by the willow tree where there's this angler busy having a bit of a fish now, there's a lovely little pocket with deep water which is likely to hold a fish. You walk past all the fast water and you walk up to the good looking water and you put a few casts through there. But don't spend too much time there. Remember, there's always more water than there is time to go and fish through the day. So we've come to a place here in the river where we've got a bend. The water's coming down round the corner and on the inside edge we've got some soft water. Now, remember that fishing with a spinning rod is very much like fishing with a fly rod. We want to get behind our fish because they can't see behind them. So that's why I like to fish above myself. Now I know most people tend to fish across and down, but I found much better results by fishing above myself. Now in this particular bit of water, right on the inside edge, right across into the very shallow edge of it, you can do extremely well. So I like to put my cast up there, knowing that trout love to sit in that very shallow water where there's less current and there's still the food coming past on a conveyor belt from the current. Now we walked up the river a little way and come across what I consider to be a really good piece of water. And if you look out here at what's beside me, you'll see how still and yet deep it is. We've got fast flowing current on the far side, and in this area just in front of us, it's nice and slow and deep. An ideal place for a trout to be. There we go. Oh, he's a nice fish. Great little sea runner. I'd just like to do a little bit on the aspect of spin fishing with casting, because you see casting is about getting a lure in an accurate position, and if we don't have a good stroke, we'll end up to the left or the right, or if the wind's blowing we'll sort of blow back, and before we know where we are in a tangle and we're not having fun. So the most important thing is to have good control over your line and over your rod. Now I start by putting the line behind my finger. I like to have the reel sort of between my fingers as I've got on my hand right here now, and turn over the bail, and everything's got to be done nice and smoothly. Now, the key thing is to keep your eye on where you want it to land, because that'll help you put it in exactly the right spot. So I pick a spot and then I am very careful to move towards that spot. Two things that destroy your casting action: a curve that way or that way, that's your slice or your hook, or a curve that way. And a lot of people, when they look at what's happening with casting, think that there's a curve that way. But really, what we're doing is we're moving in a straight line. Now remember, for distance, the optimum angle is 45 degrees, because you can get the furthest distance when you do it like the javelin throwers do. So what we're trying to do is get behind and underneath the line, and if we're going for distance, we want to push it up. And we go really up only, because when going up, we are following through in a straight line. If you follow through in a curve, you're liable to pull the line right down and make a big splash and a big mess and scare the fish and do all sorts of things like that. So remember, it's up only, and we have a follow through. Now I've just got myself a bit untangled there, so I'll demonstrate that. Here I come back, nice and smooth, and then a crisp fire. Now remember, this is not a stick. This is a rod, and it's designed to bend. But if I don't bend it, I can't get it to fire. So I need to force a bend in it. And it's that forcing of a bend that's really important. So we'll just quickly wind this in. Here it comes. So I take my line, hook it to my finger, nice and smoothly come back, and then I put a real flick, all in one straight line. Remember, when you're looking at someone who's casting, you think they're doing this, but they're actually doing that. They're moving it in a straight line, and they're doing it upwards only. That's the way to get your best, most accurate cast. If the wind's blowing, then you want to cast low. And you don't have to cast over your shoulder, so if I turn around and face you, I'll show you how this works. If I pull my line back, normally I would go up in order to cast. So I'm pushing forward and I'm only going up. That's the way I would normally cast. But if the wind's blowing, I'll often come through from a side and I'll lower my angle. The moment I put the line up or the lure up, the wind picks it up and brings it back. However, if the wind's behind me, I want to cast it high so that the wind can pull it along and give me extra distance. Little tricks that'll help you catch more fish. Now when it comes to general casting, the low angle cast is very good when it comes into winds and places where you're perhaps getting underneath overhanging trees and brush and so forth. Often it's best, if you possibly can, to get as close as you can to obstacles, because that is where the fish are hanging out. And you see Mark's very practiced at doing this. He's a good caster, he knows how to make it work. See how he's forcing the rod, he's forcing a bend in it, got a real flick to get the accuracy. And it's a great idea to start practicing where you can, even if you go at home and get yourself a target out on the lawn a wee way away from you, put on even a sinker or something like that, and just practicing hitting the spot, because that's how you get better and better. Well done, mate. Oh, that's a nice fish, buddy. Look at that. Excellent, excellent. Around and woohoo!
Yay!
Excellent. Success. There you go, buddy.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that, he's even unhooked himself.
Oh, wasn't he obliging?
Yeah.
Nice little fella.
Yeah.
Cute. Mm-hmm.